It is not appropriate to have feeders or laterals laying underwater with no additional physical protection. Submersible cables must be protected from physical damage such as being stepped on or crushed by boats or other equipment. This can be done by burying the cable underground, running it through a conduit, or using a special type of underwater cable that is designed to withstand these types of forces. There are products available that are better suited for underwater use than underground service entrance or underground feeder cable. These products include submersible cable. This type of cable is specifically designed to withstand the harsh conditions found underwater, including exposure to water, sunlight, and marine life. It is typically made of a durable material such as rubber or polyethylene, and it has a thick insulation layer to protect the conductors from damage. Conduit is a pipe that can be used to protect cables from physical damage. It can be buried underground or run along the bottom of a pond or river. Conduit is available in a variety of materials, including polyvinyl chloride, metal, and concrete. There are combination cables available that include conductors for telephone, cable, and electrical service. These cables are typically used in underground applications, but they can also be used underwater. Many people have done similar projects. The specific steps that are required will vary depending on the location of the project and the local regulations. However, some general steps that are often required include firstly, obtaining permits. One may need to obtain permits from the Department of Environmental Protection and other agencies before starting work. Secondly, protecting wetlands. If the project will impact any wetlands, one will need to take steps to protect them. This may include using erosion control measures and avoiding disturbing sensitive areas. Thirdly, installing the cable. The cable can be installed underground, in a conduit, or on the bottom of the pond or river. Fourthly, testing the cable. Once the cable is installed, it should be tested to ensure that it is working properly. It is important to note that this is not a complete list of all of the steps that may be required. One should always consult with the local authorities before starting any project that involves underwater cable installation. When installing electrical services, especially in unique environments like underwater applications, ensuring safety and code compliance is critical. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides specific guidelines and requirements for such installations. While the 2008 NEC is mentioned, it is advisable to consult the latest edition for the most up-to-date regulations. The NEC addresses various aspects of electrical installations, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment. Article 300.5 covers underground installations, and while it doesn't explicitly address underwater scenarios, it provides a foundation for safe practices. Section 310.10 addresses allowable capacities of conductors, which is crucial to prevent overheating and ensure the cable can handle the intended load. When considering submersible cables, it is essential to verify that they are listed and labeled for the specific application, as per NEC 110.3. This listing ensures that the cable has been tested and found suitable for underwater use. The cable's insulation should be rated for wet locations, and it must be resistant to degradation from prolonged submersion. For physical protection, encasing the cable in conduit is a common practice. NEC Article 352 covers rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit, while Article 344 covers rigid metal conduit. The choice of conduit material depends on the environment and potential for physical damage. Metal conduit provides superior protection against impact but may be susceptible to corrosion in certain water conditions. Polyvinyl chloride conduit is resistant to corrosion but may not be as strong as metal. The conduit must be properly supported and secured to prevent movement and strain on the cable. NEC 300.11 provides requirements for supporting wiring methods. Grounding is another critical aspect of electrical safety. NEC Article 250 provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding. The grounding system must ensure a low impedance path for fault current to facilitate the operation of overcurrent protection devices. In underwater applications, grounding electrodes may need to be specifically designed to ensure effective grounding in the water environment. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, must be properly sized to protect the cable from overload and short-circuit conditions. NEC Article 240 provides requirements for overcurrent protection. The ampacity of the cable and the interrupting rating of the overcurrent device must be carefully coordinated to ensure safe operation. For combination cables that include conductors for telephone, cable, and electrical service, it is crucial to verify that the cable is listed for the intended use and that the different conductor types are properly insulated and separated. The NEC requires that communications and electrical cables be separated to prevent interference and potential hazards. When running cables underground, the NEC specifies minimum burial depths to protect the cable from physical damage. These depths vary depending on the voltage level and the type of wiring method. While these depths may not be directly applicable to underwater installations, they provide a general guideline for ensuring adequate protection. In addition to the NEC requirements, local codes and regulations may also apply to underwater electrical installations. It is essential to consult with the local authorities and obtain the necessary permits before starting any work. Permits often require detailed plans and specifications to be submitted for review, and inspections may be required during and after installation. Environmental considerations are also important in underwater installations. Disturbance to aquatic habitat should be minimized, and erosion control measures should be implemented to prevent sediment from entering the water. The use of environmentally friendly materials is also recommended. When working with electrical systems, safety is paramount. Always to energize circuits before working on them and use appropriate personal protective equipment, such as rubber gloves and safety glasses. Only qualified electricians should perform electrical work. The use of ground fault circuit interrupters is recommended to protect against electric shock hazards. Ground fault circuit interrupters detect small imbalances in current and quickly energize the circuit to prevent injury. Before energizing the system, thoroughly inspect all connections and wiring to ensure that they are properly installed and tightened. Test the system to verify that it is working correctly and that all safety devices are functioning properly. Keep detailed records of the installation, including cable specifications, conduit type, grounding system details, and overcurrent protection device ratings. This documentation will be helpful for future maintenance and troubleshooting. Regular inspections and maintenance are essential to ensure the continued safe operation of the electrical system. Check for signs of corrosion, damage, or wear, and repair or replace components as needed. By following these guidelines and adhering to the NEC and local codes, one can ensure a safe and reliable underwater electrical installation. Remember to prioritize safety, consult with qualified professionals, and obtain the necessary permits before starting any work. In addition to the points already covered, there are several other factors to consider when planning and executing an underwater electrical service installation. Firstly, site assessment. A thorough site assessment is crucial to identify potential hazards and challenges. This includes evaluating the water depth, bottom conditions, water quality, and presence of any obstacles or sensitive areas. The assessment should also consider potential future changes, such as dredging or construction activities that could impact the cable. Secondly, cable selection. Selecting the appropriate cable for the specific underwater environment is critical. Factors to consider include the water temperature, salinity, pH level, and potential for exposure to chemicals or pollutants. Cables with specialized coatings or jackets may be necessary to withstand these conditions. Thirdly, cable routing. The cable route should be carefully planned to minimize the risk of physical damage and avoid sensitive areas. The route should be as direct as possible while avoiding sharp bends or obstructions. Consider the potential for boat traffic, fishing activities, and other underwater activities that could pose a threat to the cable. Fourthly, burial depth. If burying the cable, the burial depth should be sufficient to protect it from physical damage and erosion. The required depth will depend on the bottom conditions, water currents, and potential for disturbance. Consult with local authorities to determine the appropriate burial depth. Fifthly, cable protection. In addition to burial, other methods of cable protection may be necessary, such as concrete encasement, rock shielding, or warning signs. The level of protection will depend on the risk of physical damage and the consequences of a cable failure. Sixthly, splicing and termination. Splicing and terminating underwater cables require specialized techniques and equipment to ensure a watertight seal and reliable connection. Only qualified technicians with experience in underwater cable work should perform these tasks. Seventhly, inspection and testing. After installation, the cable should be thoroughly inspected and tested to verify its integrity and performance. This includes visual inspections, insulation resistance tests, and continuity tests. Eighthly, documentation. Detailed documentation of the installation should be maintained, including cable specifications, route maps, splicing records, and test results. This documentation will be essential for future maintenance and troubleshooting. Ninthly, maintenance plan. A regular maintenance plan should be established to monitor the condition of the cable and identify potential problems before they lead to failure. The plan should include periodic inspections, testing, and repairs as needed. Tenthly, emergency response plan. An emergency response plan should be developed to address potential cable failures or other incidents. The plan should include procedures for isolating the affected area, repairing the cable, and notifying the appropriate authorities. Furthermore, cathodic protection may be necessary to prevent corrosion of metallic components in the underwater environment. Cathodic protection involves using a sacrificial anode or an impressed current system to protect the metal from corrosion. The type of cathodic protection system will depend on the specific conditions and the materials used in the installation. Surge protection is also important to protect the electrical system from voltage spikes caused by lightning or other events. Surge protective devices should be installed at the service entrance and other critical points in the system to divert surge current away from sensitive equipment. Proper bonding and grounding are essential for safety and to minimize the risk of electrical shock. All metallic components of the electrical system, including conduits, enclosures, and equipment, should be properly bonded together and connected to a grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system should be designed to provide a low impedance path to ground for fault currents. The use of underwater connectors and junction boxes should be minimized to reduce the risk of water intrusion and corrosion. If connectors or junction boxes are necessary, they should be specifically designed for underwater use and properly sealed. The selection of appropriate hardware and fittings is crucial for the long-term reliability of the installation. All hardware and fittings should be made of corrosion-resistant materials and designed for underwater use. The use of dissimilar metals should be avoided to prevent galvanic corrosion. Consideration should be given to the potential for marine growth in the cable and other underwater components. Marine growth can increase the weight and drag on the cable, potentially leading to stress and damage. Anti-fouling coatings or other measures may be necessary to prevent or minimize marine growth. The use of remote monitoring systems can provide valuable data on the performance of the underwater electrical system. Remote monitoring systems can track parameters such as voltage, current, temperature, and water leakage, allowing for early detection of potential problems. When working in or around water, safety is paramount. All personnel should be properly trained in water safety and rescue techniques. Life jackets should be worn at all times, and a safety boat should be present during underwater work. Communication between the surface crew and the underwater team is essential for safety and coordination. Clear communication protocols should be established and followed at all times. Finally, community engagement and awareness are important for ensuring the long-term success of the project. Local residents, fishermen, and other stakeholders should be informed about the project and its potential impacts. Their concerns should be addressed, and their input should be considered in the planning and execution of the project.